And welcome back to Subculture After Dark. Well, listeners, we have got a very, very special guest on our show tonight. Kelly Schaefer is back with a brand new band and his first album in 13 years. And we thought, you know what, we could just play some tracks off this album, or we could actually get Kelly on the show to chat all about it. So we have done the latter. Welcome to the program, Kelly.
Hey Dave, how are you, buddy?
I am really well. Now, mate, we are so excited about this album. I've had a chance to sit down and listen to it. It's an amazing album, and I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about where this album has come from after 13 years, especially with a brand new band.
Yeah, so as all of us went through the sort of disparaging, horrible time of COVID, it ended up being a real blessing to me artistically I set up a small studio because I knew I was going to be stuck at home for a long time. So I set up a small studio at home and I started writing atheist riffs. I was working on the stuff that would be the next Atheist record. And then one day I came in and I tuned my guitar down to B, and I just started writing a bunch of songs that were definitely different. All the atheist material, the old material, is all written in standard tuning, and so anybody that plays guitar will understand that it's a different vibe altogether. So anyway, that's how it kind of started, and just having a couple drinks at home and just being stuck at home and kind of that tension that was happening right during that period where we didn't know what was happening, and I think that anytime in art where you're affected by your outside surroundings in that way, it reflects in your art. So I wrote Outside the Spiral, which is the title track, and I just thought, wow, shit, that's really weird. It's not an atheist, and I was able to sing. And so I had a band called Neurotica where a number of years, a lot of underground people weren't familiar with that band, but I used my singing voice. So I've had my singing voice for a long time, but never had been able to use it, and I would never use it in the context of atheist. So, long story short, I wrote these songs and sang on them, and I was able to find a home for all 5 different voices that I had. And it just felt liberating to be able to have a body of music that I wrote that I could sing any way I want to over it. And so it's full of blast beats and melody, and it's angry, it's pissy, it's beautiful, it's dark, it's icy, it's a lot of different things, and it's exciting. And the way it came together was just completely from that headspace of being stuck at home during COVID and not knowing where life was going to be going, So and I love that experimentation of that natural experimentation of being able to write music under distress.
Yeah.
So I like it.
How did you feel when you first started to listen back to what you had done when you went in there and did something so different? How did that make you feel?
So I would go. I have a really great stereo in my car, and so I would my wife was a bartender, and I would start writing a song at about 7 p.m. and I would get to the vocals at about 1:30 in the morning, and I would finish each Outside the Spiral was written in one night. Almost all the songs that are on the record were written basically in one night. They were fluffed with a little bit, once Scott Burns came on and became involved, but not a lot. And so they're really sort of spontaneous combustions of each evening of desperation of COVID. And I wrote 25 songs in this time period, but obviously we had to narrow it down to 11 for the album. But so it was just this really prolific period. I would write the song and go and get in my car, and it's amazing to me as a older musician. I come from the 4-track. How old are you?
I'm 43.
Okay, so it's still 12, 13 years difference. But back in the day, all we had were 4 tracks, and so if you were to try to multi-track and lay down, I was laying down 4 tracks of guitar, so I could basically be everybody in the band by myself. I could write everything myself. I didn't have to ask anybody's opinion. I didn't have to hurt anybody's feelings about not using their riff. You know what I mean? It was this really just completely liberating experience. And I only had to please myself. And once I got it done, I would ride around the car and listen to it really loud. And I was just stunned at the listenability of it, the quality of the recording. And even the drums that I wrote, I used loops, and I would just cut them up into pieces, and to fit the drums that I felt were necessary. And sometimes there were like a lot of really happy accidents that happened. So that's the way that this all came together. It's full of flaws, and I love it. I love that it's not this perfect, pristine recording. It's really very punk rock in a digital way.
Yeah. Talking of punk rock, there's a lot of different genres that you can hear in this music as well. Is that something that you were aware of when you were working on it, just how many different sounds and different genres seem to come through?
So I think that I have always had a great love for stoner metal and Black Sabbath based sort of stoner rock, and also for the real grungy shit, and from Seattle, like the old Soundgarden, old Alice in Chains, and so I've always loved that music. So it's always been sort of a parallel with me, because I'm older, so I've been around for just as long as all that's been around. So it's I was moving in that natural progression as well, and I most of the people familiar with Atheist aren't familiar with my singing voice at all, but I've always been singing. So this isn't nothing new. It's just the first time I've been able to find a band, or a scenario where I can use all these voices. But just the way it's all been just accidental, and then I love that. I love the idea that you can, spontaneously combust during a period of COVID, and something great can come out of something so bad. And that's what this record is to me. When I listen to it, it's politically charged. It's alcohol influenced. Yep. It's angry, and it's got a lot of flaws. You know what I mean? It's exposing someone going through something that was full of anger. But there's also a lot of really beautiful moments on the record. So that would never happen on an Atheist record. So for me, it was brand new ground, and it feels like 17 years old again with something different. And it's very hard to classify this music. But yes, grunge was a huge, sort of thing that I just loved. I was progressing in that way while grunge was happening. I just didn't have as successful of a band, as the rest of the Seattle people. I didn't come from Seattle, but I've always been in that headspace. I felt very parallel to that scene, but I was in Florida, making death metal. Yeah. But I was also like writing stuff that would end up being Neurotica, which was was a popular band in a different world, you know what I mean? And so it's a duality that I've struggled with over my career, that because all the Atheist fans aren't familiar with Neurotica and vice versa. Yeah. And so it's interesting, as I do press for Till the Dirt, it's interesting to realize the dynamic. People are like, as if I've just discovered this singing voice. You know what I mean? And like, where did that come from after 35 years, And it's like, yeah, okay, so it's always been there, It's just that I never had a home for it. I would never use it in the context of Atheist, out of respect for why people love that band. Definitely. And so just two different vibes,
Yeah. So how did you feel when you first sent the music to Scott? Were you kind of nervous when you sent it to him, or how were you feeling at that time?
I don't, you know what I mean? I don't get my feelings hurt very much, So what I really wanted was honesty, and you will never get more of an honest opinion out of anyone than Scott Burns. He is heartbreakingly honest. You know what I mean? He doesn't care how, what your girlfriend thinks or what your best friend thinks. If it sucks, it sucks. And so I was like, man, he's going to be the ultimate test. And but I mean, the way it came about was, again, the same way the music came about. We hadn't spoken in 20 plus years, and a mutual friend named Tim Hubbard, who was a photographer for a lot of the old school Tampa death metal. He took all the original Obituary shots and Deicide and Atheist, and he was just the photographer for Tampa Bay death metal, and also Scott's best friend for many years. And so I had talked to Tim, and he was like, yeah, I talked to Scott. I was like, man, I want to talk to Scott. And he was like, okay. So he connected us, and we had this great conversation for about an hour and a half, just about life, kids, time, just reminiscing about things. Yep. And right at the end of the conversation, I laid on him that I had some new music, and he sounded very disappointed because he felt like he was going to have to tell me, oh, shit, your new music's horrible, old guy, you know. So, but that didn't happen. I sent him the songs, and he was really excited about it, and that made me excited, and it set off an explosion of songwriting, and yeah, it was really cool.
Awesome. So then I guess the next step from them was, how did you start to put together this band? Like, did you have musicians in mind when you were writing the music, or how did you go out there and get the guys that we hear on this album?
No, quite the contrary. I didn't have anybody in mind. Like I was telling you, it was I was enjoying the freedom of not having to have anybody's opinion.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I was like, yes, I'm gonna lay down all the guitars and the bass and everything, and write the drums, and nobody can get angry at me, and no one's girlfriend can get mad at me because I didn't use their boyfriend's riff in the song. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of things to write to being in a band that are really these micro dynamics that not a lot of people know about.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, especially if you're in a young band. You know, I mean, you have 5 guys that all want to write. They want to be a songwriter too. You know. And but that's not the case with the guys that I'm writing with now. I have so much respect for them. But back in the day when you're young, that's something you have to go through, and you've got to sort of concede on certain things just to make your band, just to continue to be married to 4 other people.
Yeah.
So as an older musician, I just loved the idea of not having to ask anybody. So once the songs were done, I had a lot of help from the guys that were in the previous lineup with Atheist, a guy named Daniel Martinez and a guy named Chris Martin. Both those guys, they were in my band at the time. Again, it was just I didn't know it was going to be a band. I didn't know we were going to, that this was going to be anything. But I was just like, hey, could you lay a solo on this particular part? And so they did over the course of time. So then once I realized it was going to be a band, I had been fortunate enough to make friends with a lot of really talented people. And so Steve DiGiorgio and Jeff Loomis, who are homies, who I text back and forth with, while I was making those songs, I was just like, hey, you want to lay the bass on this, Steve? And I asked him to lay the bass on whatever he wanted to. I gave him the whole album and said, whatever song you want to play on, I would just love to have you on the album. And with Loomis, I sent him Privilege, which is going to be the next single for the record. It's coming out in a few days. And I'm so excited about it. He just shreds it. And he's a guy that I met when he was, like, I think 15 years old. Yep. You know what I mean? And we met at the Milwaukee Day of Death. Eric Greif, who was Death's manager for many years, through this festival in Milwaukee. And he came there, and now he's fucking Jeff Loomis, who it was just, to me, one of the Eddie Van Halens of the fucking death metal world, or the thrash death metal, of the extreme metal world, Yep. Just a virtuoso guitar player. And I have so much respect for him. Plus, we have 2 children that look exactly like. We have little boys, and so that's what we end up talking about more than anything. When we message each other, we talk about being dads, But so we've been friends for a while. So I was like, hey man, would you do a solo on this song? He was like, absolutely. And I'm so grateful to him for that, because he just he crushes everything he does. And so I'm really excited for people to hear this next single that's coming out in a few days. And so all those things, again, came about very organically and naturally.
Now, the album is coming out, of course, in just over a week. How are you feeling? Are you nervous, or are you excited about being able to release this music out there for your fans?
I guess being honest, I'm both. You know what I mean? I don't want people to hate it. You know what I mean? I do care what people think. Some people try to pretend like I don't give a fuck, what people think, but I really, I do. You know what I mean? I want to, more than anything, I want to leave something great behind for my kids. I want to make great art, that lasts a long time. So that's always been my goal, So of course I feel nervous that people won't understand. I'm so gun shy about it, because everything I've ever done in my career has always been like, it takes years for people to kind of go, oh, okay, I get your joke now. It's like telling a joke and waiting 20 minutes for applause,
Yeah.
It's like, that's the downside of trying to do something different. It'd be super easy to roll up into the formula of today and exactly what's happening with these perfect productions and these crystal clean, sounding records and these, just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is a record that was tracked by me drinking Jaeger bombs, smoking pot, fucking loving metal. There's a very punk rock element to that process that doesn't happen anymore because of the digital nature of the way, there's no corrections or, it's just like, but at the same time, it's not as organic as Atheist. So I wrote this whole record to a click track, which I've never used a click track in all my life. So it's very modern in that sense. So it's just this different. It's like the same headspace used with modern technology.
Yeah, it sounds really raw, which I think is one of the things I love about it.
Me too, buddy. I mean, me too. I everything is so goddamn perfect, and just it's not real. That's not real.
Yeah.
There's mistakes. I love some of the best moments in musical history are mistakes.
Yep.
There was a moment in a Police song I saw Stuart Copeland talking about. Driven to Tears, I think is the song, and the intro starts with a piano or something, and Sting was waiting to do his vocal, and he sat on the piano, and it created this butt chord.
Yep.
And he started laughing, and they left that on the album, and it's like a classic moment on the song. You know what I mean? I love shit like that, where there's we're human beings, and listen. People need to appreciate the human element of making music, because we are headed into the AI world, and so from the next year on, you're not going to know whether what you hear is real or fake. You won't know anymore. AI AI can take my voice and write a song with it, and it's just. It's a weird time in technology right now. The toothpaste got out of the tube before anybody could get it, sorted out, and there's no way to get it back in the tube, so we're really kind of left to see how it plays out. And so anytime you hear mistakes, and there were some moments on the album where the guitars aren't perfectly in tune, and I was like, I don't give a fuck. Yeah. That sounds perfect.
Yeah.
So,
and
just a little. That's how it is live.
Exactly. And I grew up in that time period where you'd go to a gig and the band's album would be available on cassette that they'd recorded themselves in their garage. So it's kind of what we grew up with.
Absolutely. And I did all these vocals, every single vocal track on this album I did with a handheld 58 sitting in my room with my 3-year-old on the couch.
Wow.
It's super fucking organic. As organic as you can be in this day and age, anyway. Yeah. I didn't get in a booth with a little filter on the microphone and a fancy mic. Everything about it is super raw and very DIY. But I just happen to be able to pull in some really great people to help me take it to the level sonically that it needs to. Scott Burns and Ryan Vincent, and those two guys really helped make it real, and so they just took all of my inconsistencies and they amplified them.
Awesome. So Kelly, I guess the next big question now is, where to now for the band? Are you hoping to get out and do some shows after the album comes out? Might we see you in Australia at some stage? What are the plans?
Oh, my goodness. First of all, with Atheist, we need to come to Australia. We are working on that for next year, actually. I know that I've spoken with management about it for the last 2 years. So at minimum, you'll see me on stage with Atheist in Australia. And my goodness, I hope that people love the Till the Dirt record. It's really up to everybody. I hope everybody will go and check it out and buy it and support music. Please don't just stream it. You're just making that guy at Spotify richer.
Yeah.
Buy the record, collect it. The album is the album artwork is beautiful, and it was done by Santiago Jaramillo and Triple Stace Design, and he did a great job. And AJ and Nuclear Blast, laid it all out. It's beautiful, to get back to enjoying and looking through a record, vinyl or CD in the booklet, and know that in a moment in a pinch of convenience, you can roll over to Spotify. But I'd like to see people start buying music again, because it really affects us. It affects our ability to be able to make music. So I hope people will check it out on August 25th on Nuclear Blast, and it's an honest effort of metal. I'm a long-time lover of metal, and I try to keep it as real as possible, so I hope people will feel that when they listen to it.